All right, welcome back To Be Fair, a podcast hosted by Aaron, and that's me. And tonight we are without our lovely Lisa, but we are joined by special guest Chris Nielson. How are you, Chris?
I'm doing great, Aaron. How are you?
Good. Apparently, I just made you come in like as a second to my actual host. It's not really how I meant to come across.
Yeah, so I'm third in line or fourth.
Yeah. Well, Lisa would have been with us, but she's in the middle of planning a trip or getting ready to go on a trip to Florida. So I'm like, I'm like, if you don't feel like recording, and I'm like, we're mostly going to be talking about improv anyway. And she's like, yeah, I don't really know much about that anyway.
And I loved what someone said, though. Everyone knows about improv. They do it all day long.
People don't even realize how much a daily interaction is just improv, especially when you're in the middle of something that you are that makes you uncomfortable or makes you feel like you're on the spot. Like improv is that thing for me. It's like, oh crap, I'm supposed to say something because everyone's watching me.
Everyday life is improv, yet the rules of improv gave me more enjoyment in living actually everyday life.
Mm-hmm. It's funny when you talk about improv with people. They're like, "Oh, well, aren't you an improv actor? Can't you just fake it?" I'm like, there's still boundaries of how to work with it. Like you don't just like make crap up like on the spot. I mean, wait, yes, you do, but I mean, usually there's a formula,
Yeah.
of what you're doing, and at least you have some sort of guidance on that. And that's what with me for improv. Obviously, listeners, we are talking about improv from the point of being an improv performer, where like Chris and I know each other from doing improv comedy with my group Self-Improvment. But Chris, you do more improv than just performing it as an entertainment source. You use it in like in what you do in your everyday in your career field. So
I do.
yeah, so if you want to give us a little bit about what that is.
Sure. I share it with leadership teams. I share it with CEOs. I'll share it with an HR team coming up on April 1st, April Fool's Day. And I share it with actually, and then April 2nd, I'm sharing it with the San Diego Alzheimer's Association for like the 10th time we've done it for them. And it's one of my favorite places to perform with them and also share how it can help their everyday life, because we do it for caregivers to better connect with their people and to, instead of having arguments about things as foolish as it's not 1950, Dad, versus just having fun with that. Well, what did you do in 1950? Saying yes and to that. And so what was your favorite music, instead of fighting it? And it makes it, they love it. It's a ton of fun. It gives them real world tactics and tools to play with their people versus fight with their people and disagree with their people.
Mm-hmm. I like using the yes and when you actually brought that up, and that's probably like the ground rules for improv. That's essentially the golden rule of improv is literally yes and. And what that means, I've learned, I mean, I remember watching videos from Tina Fey teaching me improv, and, from back when she used to work with Second City and Upright Citizens Brigade. And the whole point, and is like literally when you're working with somebody else, you're literally just bouncing off each other, and you're building, you're creating, you're telling a story. And sometimes you're doing that in just a social interaction in general.
I find myself playing the game in social interactions, basically. And I tell everyone those two words, yes and, made me a better person.
Mm-hmm.
And I see hanging around improv people, they're fun people to hang around because they're looking for reasons to say yes to you. It might not be the straight on yes, but at least an angle off that
yes
triggers that creativity.
Yeah. For me, yes, and brought in this, my listening skills. I had really poor listening skills. So it really helped me to be able to start focusing on what other people were saying and actually be interested and not just look interested.
Absolutely. For me, I was a no but kind of guy. I say that you'd share a good idea. I'd say no, but I got a better idea. And I didn't know how many people I was upsetting.
I know, right?
Yeah. But I was upsetting a lot of people, I'm sure. And one of the things I say with yes and, it's incredibly connecting with people, and it usually leads to something better, cooler, funnier, something creative.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, like, what are we? I mean, we're also working on a project together that we're working on a digital web series, which we've kind of been on a little bit of a what I like to call a creative hiccup right now, where we've kind of been on a little bit of a break because I've been having to reevaluate it a little bit because what's our goal with that? You know, what do we want? Because our goal was to try and have the pilot done by the end of this month, and it wasn't looking good for it anymore. And so I started to give up on it. But luckily I have had conversations with everyone in the cast of it, and we've been able to, we're not stopping it. I think we just need to regroup and be like, all right, let's do this. Because we all have lives outside of our creative thing. And that's what I have to remember, is that working with people is a challenge.
I think one of my friends had a rule that said, people complicate everything.
Oh my God. If we could just get rid of all the people.
Aaron, so that's what in my early years in life, I wanted everyone to do what I wanted them to do so I could enjoy my life.
Yes. That's a great way to think about how explain it. Is a lot of times that's what I struggle with, is trying to control everything around me. I'm the director of my life.
And that's very tough, isn't it?
Yes. It is really.
Especially when you, Aaron, the main star of your life, doesn't listen to all your directions either.
Right? Like, hey, you're going off book. Like this, where'd you do the rewrite? What's happening here? And then I just spiral.
Aaron, you're fired. Chris, you're fired. We need new stars in here.
I have a struggle with staying on task on my book, on my character, which is why I like improv, because you're able to change and develop right in the same scene that you're doing, as long as you make it make sense to the rest of your scene partners.
Yeah, I mean, what I love, even just simple games of new choice between people,
Mm-hmm.
you never know. You can't control it. That's helped me get rid of some of my control issues. You cannot control where it's going, because as soon as one person adds to another and you're yes-anding each other, it goes all over the place and you don't know where to expect to go. And that's a creative, cool, expansive feeling.
Yeah. One of my favorite parts about improv is the fact that I cannot, once it's on the stage and it's being performed in front of the audience, I'm always very clear with my audience that this only is allowed to go where you let it go. You give us the suggestions and we go there. And if sometimes it's a little weird and hard to understand, only blame yourself.
Yeah, I was hoping you'd go there. My control issues wanted you to go there. Yes, audience, if we do a scene with your suggestions, it's your fault where it goes.
Yes. Like, and I think that helps the audience understand that you're going to see stuff that's going to look stupid. You're going to see stuff that flops on stage.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to say it too. There's stuff that is not going to make sense, but
yes,
out of that, I think we're going to find at least a couple gems tonight.
Yes. Every performance we've done, although it's been over a year since we've been able to perform. I mean, we did the summer show, the outdoor one, but I mean, when we were doing our regular every Sunday at Clock Owl, I mean, which actually it probably has been a while since you performed with us, because it was pre-COVID.
It's been the summer. It was the last time I was there, and yeah.
But yeah, so whenever we performed, there were a lot of times where sometimes I would look at what was going on stage and think about what the audience was perceiving, and I was thinking it was a train wreck. But the audience was eating it up, because what I find, especially in our community, which has been really cool, is that they just want to see us being weird. They're just entertained by the fact that we're just ridiculous.
I think it gives a sense of freedom to an audience because I've got more freedom. I think the people that like us that have really grasped onto yes and bring that to the stage, that gives me more freedom, and that gives the audience a chance. Wow, maybe I could feel more free as well.
Yeah. So my journey with improv began about, I would say, 11 or 12 years ago. Although I'd watched Whose Line Is It Anyway before.
Yeah.
And so I knew what improv was, but I really didn't think I was interested in it or could master anything to that level. I didn't, there was no way. I just wasn't confident in who I was. But I started Renegade Theater in Duluth, Minnesota. They started doing improv shows on Friday nights for like $5. And it was really cool to go. A lot of us that would be doing a show, we'd all go together after our performance was over and rush over to Renegade and watch the improv, because it was a lot of our friends. And I had taken some improv classes before, but I'd never actually thought about the fact that you could perform it to this level. I just didn't realize it. And so I started taking classes, and I started to realize that improv was what I was missing to be a better performer. And
yeah, I went into improv at first, was a speaking game for me. And I didn't even know it was improv. I didn't even know what improv was. And this was probably, I don't know, 10 or 11 years ago. I hadn't even seen Whose Line Is It Anyway. I didn't have no idea what improv was. And we played the game that he called it the change game. Clinton Swain, my friend from Frontier Trainings, he called it the change game. And it's where two people tell a story, like Three Little Pigs, and one says change. And it takes the story into crazy directions. And the first time I played it, I struggled and I was hard on myself. And the second time, I think I had a really decent moment of joy within the game, a creative moment. And the third time, I had this incredible, expansive, creative experience. And I was hooked. And my friend said, "Hey, do you know that's an improv game?" I said, "Never heard of it." I said, "I want to play more of this." And he said, "Oh, you should check out Jackie Lowell," which was a local improver that ran classes in Claremont Mesa area in the San Diego County. And she'd been doing it forever. She played improv way back in the day with Whoopi Goldberg. And been running classes for a long time. So it's just once I found that, was a blast. Though I say this too in many of my speeches, I say my first class was almost my last, because I froze up in a game and I thought, oh, I can't handle this if I freeze up and can't come up with anything.
Oh yeah, I've done that. There's been times where, I mean, there's no perfect I think science to improv. Like, there's guidelines, I think, and it's more like just guidelines. I don't think there's a rule book. It's literally like, if you want to have a formula on stage and somehow be able to tell your stories with the beginning, middle, and end, you have to follow some of these guidelines. But by getting up there without having a script and having to have rehearsed something before, I mean, and you have great scene partners, you can create an amazing thing that could sound better than anything scripted.
Oh, for sure. When I teach improv to corporations, nonprofits, teams, organizations, here's how I teach them. I do yes and. I have a guessing game, the two words, that basic principle. And those that know pretty much know yes and. And then I said the second principle, I think, is the number one skill in communication, the number that makes up communication, the number one skill in leadership, sales, negotiation, relationships. And that's listening, as you said earlier. To say yes and, you have to be listening. And then for me, the next line came in, how do you take listening to another level? And this is what made improv really enjoyable for me, and almost just this expansive experience, is to be present while you're listening. And that didn't happen for me right away. Like I said, the first improv class was almost my last. We played the game called Pass the Object with a big white toilet brush. Have you ever done that, Pass the Object? It's where you turn an object into something it isn't. So they gave our group of about 15 people a white toilet brush, and it looked new. Jackie said it was new, but it did not have a tag on it. And people were turning it into cool things. A butterfly net. I could see the person a butterfly net with it, a tennis racket, a badminton racket. And I was frozen like a deer in headlights. And my vision was tunneling because of the breathing in the fear zone, just shallow up top breath, blank, completely blank. And there was a voice basically saying, you're going to fail, you're going to get rejected, and you're going to die or want to die. And then I finally came, it was getting closer to me coming around. I finally said, I thought in my head, canoe paddle. That'll save me. I'll survive this game. And the person right next to me says canoe paddle. Rush, yeah. And I'm going, I don't have anything. And all of a sudden, I started brushing my teeth with a toilet brush. And I survived. I got some groans and laughs, and I survived the game. And what I learned from that for at least a couple of years is you got to come up with two things. And so
not a bad idea.
Yeah, so I wasn't present. I got my first one. Now what's the next one? What's the next one? Eventually, I loved it when people would pull you on stage. They got an idea in their head, and you had no idea what their idea was, but you would trust them to pull you on stage and basically say yes and to each other, listen, be present. Mm-hmm. And the fourth thing I share, which I think is powerful in improv, is make your blank look blank is how I share it. And it's make your people look great, make your partner look great. So it's whatever they share, it's your job to give it back to them and set them up to succeed.
My struggle is that I've worked with so many different improv performers, and as a leader and director of the current group, it's been a struggle for me to have to be the objective one sometimes, to see who worked best in what type of game, scenes, with other performers, who has a better rapport with each other or chemistry on stage. I don't think people really realize a lot of what goes into having to direct these things and actually set up who's going to play what game. But we've had some actors that have come and gone through the group, and I think that they're all very talented, but there's a certain type of person, there's a certain type of formula, chemistry that you have to be like an improv actor and be able to commit to saying yes and I've seen a couple where it's like they have something in their mind and they want, no matter what, they're going to make that happen on stage, and then they blow up that whole scene and the rest of the scene partners have no idea what's going on.
That's a struggle to work with someone like that. Yes.
And so then when I have to have those conversations with people about okay, so here's some coaching, here's some, notes about what to work on. They don't like that. They absolutely don't like that criticism. And it's like, I get tricked. I get really uncomfortable because I used to be that type of person too, that did not want to hear that I was not perfect.
Now, here's what I share as well. I go, when I failed at something out here, I felt like I was the failure, and that made it hard to take risks. It made it hard to do improv, made it hard to do anything new. And when Jackie Lowell shared what she said was, and I shared as number 5 in my list, dare to blank. And she said, this is the secret to success in improv and life. And she said, it's dare to suck.
Yes.
And when she said it, though, you said yes. But when she said it first in that room like 10 years ago, I said no, because if I suck at something, I suck, and I don't want to. But you're going, but you're right. You're just like the person sitting next to me in the room that day. They're going, yeah.
No, like I am now.
Yeah,
I am now. I was not back then when I first started learning, and I was like, no, there's no way. I'm like, you're supposed to be ready to know what you're doing on stage, but this is contradicting every performance every technical theater thing I've learned. Yeah. So that's the thing. Be prepared to suck is the best rule next to yes and that you can have. Is you cannot have any doubt when you get on that stage, when you're improving, because once you're up there, your scene partners are waiting for you to do something, or they're, because you don't want to expect that they're going to drive. It has to be driven by the whole group. And sometimes you're going to yes and you're going to and something that just bombs, and it's not going to always, the audience is not always going to laugh. The audience is not always going to react, even when you think that joke should have landed.
I know that feeling. And what I like too, though, is with setting your partner up to succeed. You could go out there and think you just bombed, and then your partner turns that into something really cool.
Yes.
Never expected. Yeah.
I love when I see that happen, when it's like, especially when I'm on stage with somebody, because though I can teach improv skills to a certain level, and though I can do some improv, I in no way do I ever try to come off as I am a master improver, because I am absolutely not. I'm probably just as novice as anyone else in our group.
I don't rate myself as a master improver at all either.
Yeah.
And there's so many better performers in improv than I am.
Yeah.
I do a great job of integrating it with actually real world solutions. And I'm good at playing some games with different people, but I'm not a master performer in improv.
But I love how you transitioned that, how helped to get that transition, because of the fact that we're talking about it as a performance thing, which is common, and that's how people can understand what improv is. But people like you and I, we tend to find ways to use improv in our everyday life. Like you use it as, in leadership trainings. I use it sometimes just to be able to have a conversation with somebody. I mean, I work in human service type of industry, working with people, or before I worked in a restaurant, where I always told my staff in the restaurants that when you're out on the sales floor in the dining room, that's your stage and you're performing. And you have to be on, And
that's great advice too. And I've always wanted to bring what I teach into restaurants and restaurant groups or anything hospitality. Yeah. Because here's what I share with it. I did this with groups of CEO. I do it with all kinds of speaking groups. I do it with, teams of all kinds, from Microsoft I've worked with, to McAfee, to Federal Reserve Bank. I've worked with all different teams from there. And I share it this way. How many of you, especially with CEOs as an example, how many of you CEOs would like all your employees to look to yes and you, listen, be present while they're listening, and make you look great, their partners look great, and your company look great? And they pretty much say, we'd like all of them to be that way. And then I go, here's the flip though. How many of your employees would like you to be that way? And they go, all of them too. And now, and here's the big question, can you be that way? And then what's stopping you from choosing to be that way? And I think becoming that is just habit. And I say, let's bring some improv games into your company that you can use on a meeting to meeting basis that starts to build this yes and philosophy into it. And imagine you being in restaurants as long as you've been in, imagine a group at a restaurant where all the employees were looking to say yes and to each other. They were listening, they were present, they were making their servers, the cooks, the restaurant owner look great, the manager look great, and the customers. That would be such a playful, positive, connecting atmosphere. I think customers would be drawn to it. Employees would be drawn to work there.
It sounds like a dreamland.
It is my dream, and my vision is to take this and change whole cultures of organizations with it.
Yeah, well, and that's great. In a restaurant, yes, I think especially during times of COVID, I had to bite my tongue with so many people. It's one of the reasons that I left the restaurant industry. I actually love the staff at the restaurant I worked at, the owners, all amazing people. And I'm not just saying that because they probably listen to this podcast, but I'm just saying because I love everything about it. It's just the industry started to become too much for me in this new world of a pandemic, and people needing to social distance, and people needing to wear masks, and all these different things. And it's like, when you have to deal with the general public who don't want to believe in all this stuff, and my attitude was getting really bad. My attitude towards people, and even improv skills weren't helping me anymore.
Well, so it's a version of what you're talking about. Is like the discordant partner in a scene. We're living in two different realities right now. It seems like one scene partner is saying, no, this is the way it is. And the other partner is not yes-ending it. They're saying, no,
yes,
this is the way it is. And you're living in that discordant world that's just smacking into each other. And that can be difficult.
That's a great way to put it. It's because it's true. Like you're not gonna achieve anything in that scene if you're not yes-ending each other. So therefore, it's literally just friction, and it's that polar opposite magnet thing where like they just repel each other.
Yeah,
I can come off that way sometimes because my personality is so different from so many other people's, especially in this community. I tend to either be one of those people that people are drawn to me, or people do not want to come near me because I'm just too much. And I've accepted that about myself.
Yeah.
But
I'll share with you one of my theories that I share with people, and see how you relate to it. I say, it's my theory. I go, tell me if you agree, thumbs up. If you don't agree, thumbs down. And I say, Americans love zombie movies because zombies are a little bit more dead than they are.
I could go with the fact that sometimes I think a zombie might be more alive than I am.
Sometimes, but that's why I think it's when you're playing big, living big, being big, it actually feels good when you're like that. And more people, we've been squashed down by so many rules. One of the things I do, I mean, I want to get people to feel when I'm speaking or training. And so I say, raise your hand like you raised your hand in kindergarten. And usually in a group of 20 people, there's at least 3 people that go, ooh, pick me, a version of that. And then the other people are kind of like this. And I go, no. So those 3 people in the room that did that, I go, how did it feel to raise your hand like that? And they go, oh my gosh, it felt so good. And so I said, let's all give it a try. And what happens in kindergarten or whatever grade, we raise our hand like crazy, raise it up. And then we eventually we learn that answering a question is dangerous. Being too big is dangerous because it makes you a target. People are going to pick on you for winning. People are going to pick on you for losing. People are picking you for getting the right answer. People are going to picking you for getting the wrong answer. It's like,
that was my entire school year. Like the personality that you know of me now is not who I was when I was a younger version of myself. In school, I was not the person that raised my hand. I was the person that hoped that nobody noticed me, because when people noticed me, they were not nice to me. And so it was easier to not be noticed. So now being on that opposite thing, I sometimes struggle with having control of that balance. Because there's that part of me that still wants to be that down back here, like, don't look at me. And then there's that other person, that other part of me that is like, oh my God, spotlight, please.
That's got to be difficult at times. So you have those two, and most people have, contradicting things in us. There's part of me that doesn't want to be, because I remember I was pretty successful in high school as an athlete and a student, but I still remember walking around myself because I was so critical of myself that every moment I was like, it was a test. Every test was a test. Every interaction was a test. And I thought I could fail possibly at any moment, and then things were going to go really bad.
I always look at any interaction as the next phase of my life. Like if I'm talking to somebody, a decision is going to be made potentially with somebody that's going to alter a course in my life.
Yeah.
And so I have to make sure that I'm making the right choice, no matter what the conversation is, even if it's just, where are we going for dinner? Like if we go out for Chinese, I'm probably going to be in the bathroom all night. And if we are going out for McDonald's, you're not going to want to be in the same room as me after a while.
Yeah, I can relate to you on the McDonald's thing. I have not eaten McDonald's in years because of that. It was bad.
It's brutal. I can't, I think until you're like 28, you're good with eating McDonald's. You're fine.
McDonald's till 28. I think it was me more like 25 when it happened. Or maybe McDonald's changed their recipes when I was 25 because it went bad for me then. But sure. Chinese food, I still love.
Oh yeah, I still love Chinese food. But but adapting my life to using improv in the daily. I used it a lot when I worked in the hotel world, in the restaurant world.
Yeah.
I found it working. It really helps when I work in mental health. It really does help, because one of the worst things that I think we all relate to, especially in our mental health struggles, is self-esteem issues and confidence. And I think that improv can help boost both of those.
And it's very supportive. It's what I say, that boosts your connections, which actually improve mental health in organizations as well, improve productivity, improves collaboration. It improves communication and improves creativity. And I love C words, so it improves confidence as well. It does all those things in that. And I say it leads to great innovation, great engagement of whatever workforce you have or organization, and incredible productivity. That's why I'm looking forward to. I mean, I'm talking to a big company. When is it? Oh, I think, yeah, April Fool's Day, April 1st. And it's my first meeting with their HR. I'm hoping to bring it through their whole company.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm excited for you.
Yeah.
It's with, like you were saying, yes, and adding yes and into just a daily conversation is a game changer to everything. And I think it helps other people to, like, just by having that interaction with you, like someone else might be like, oh, I really like how that conversation went. I'm going to try and have a conversation like that with someone else. And hopefully at some point, everyone's going to get to the point of being able to actually communicate. And because communication is probably one of my biggest pet peeves when it's bad communication, especially in the workplace. And I think improv teaches really good communication skills.
I think it teaches great communication skills. It's made, like I said, it's made me a better listener. You said it made you a better listener.
100%.
Yeah, and I ask people this all the time too. If someone listens to you and they're present while listening to you, that alone is a gift. I mean, because it's such a rarity. We're so multitasking on things, distracted by our phone, distracted by all kinds of things. When someone is there present with you, fully listening, not making their mind up early, it makes a big difference.
That was part of the reason why I actually came down to finally when we had to name our improv group. And one day I was just talking about how I really found that we as a group aren't only going to be performing. A lot of us are going to be learning these skills that might help us better ourselves. And so I was like, okay, kind of like self-improvement. And then I just was like, ding. Ding. I don't know why. I'm really good at naming things. I'm not sure why. I just come up with them. I think it's pretty much the extent of my creativity is I can name something and then we're good.
Can you name that tune? Are you good with music too? Or
sometimes.
I'm sometimes too. I'm not that great with naming that tune.
Yeah, it really depends. But yeah, so when we came up with the name Self-Improvment, it stuck because I liked the fact that it had a double meaning to our group.
Oh, I love the name too. I mean, I get it. It's improved me. I say it all the time, and I get, sometimes I fall away. I was programmed to know about, so occasionally that program comes back. And I realize, in certain parts of my life, it's probably stronger than others. But the yes and, as it gets stronger, it makes life more fun, connecting, more enjoyable. And I'm more enjoyable to be around because of it too.
Have you found that in your work, though, that the pandemic, especially now that you're having to do a lot more of what you do, like virtually, how has that affected what you do?
In positive ways. I look for I'm pretty glass half full type of guy. I look for the positive in almost anything, find the gift in almost anything. The great thing for me is I used to hate to commute, and it takes the commuting away. And the other thing, I mean, to do some gigs, I would fly, get up super early, drive to an airport, get on a plane, fly to a place, stay overnight, give the presentation the next day, get on another airplane and fly back. That's a lot of stuff to give one presentation, where instead just 5 minutes early, I can go in, get ready, go. So that way it's cool. And for me, I created, as a speaker, I always want to get better. And improv has helped me get better as a speaker, and I'd highly recommend it for any speaker. The other thing for me is this: I wanted to keep improving my speaking skills. So even before the pandemic, I thought, how can I do that? Well, I think it would be better if I got a bunch of speakers together so we'd play games. And I love the idea of creating an environment of inevitable success. Yeah. So I had in my head, how do I create an environment of inevitable success? And I love basketball and I love improv, and you don't have to force me to go to either one. I just want to go. And then I thought, oh my gosh, I got to have a playful environment of inevitable success, and one where I don't have to commute to it. So I did it on Zoom. I mean, this was in December before the pandemic, I think December or November. And I came up with the idea, finally made it a reality, I think in December. and we met on Zoom, played some speaking games. A lot of them were improv games, and improved our speaking skills together. And so this, I've figured once we went on this, I'm very interactive in person. So how can I make the Zoom experience interactive as well? So I use breakout rooms. I turn everyone into emperors and empresses. I go thumbs up if you like it, thumbs sideways if you're not sure, thumbs down if you don't like it, 2 thumbs up if you love it. And if you want to cut my head off, 2 thumbs down. I might want to know, because a number of people have cut my head off.
Oh, off with his head.
Off with his head.
But yeah, because I was just thinking that I know you do a lot of leadership trainings, and a lot of them are usually in like seminars, probably, and different types of events like that, workshops and stuff. You're probably usually hired on as a speaker at different events for different situations. And so I'm sure it's been a lot less in-person groups.
I was invited to do one in-person one in February in San Diego. And right now I'm in Surprise, Arizona, near my parents. And on the way there, they called me actually to cancel because they had a COVID outbreak at the bank I was going to present in.
Oh, yeah. I know even with us, like we're finally talking about with the improv group getting back on stage, and we've been different ways to do it. And of course with me, we have the idea to go back on Clockout stage, and I'm very excited to do that. But the one thing is getting us all to workshop before we get back on stage. And of course, our lives have gone in so many different directions since the pandemic started that it's really tough to get everyone back together. And that's where I'm struggling lately, is getting everyone back on, because we have so many opportunities coming our way now, like even with the Rife and this potential talk show idea. And then of course getting back on Clockout, we're working on a project that's digital, like in a similar concept to a sitcom, but that you never think about how much work is actually put into all of this stuff. And
that's why I love people like you that start organizing and do the work.
I do. And it's like, people don't realize that I'm doing all of this. Like either it's actually costing me money, and it's not making me anything. I have not made a dime off of anything of what I do. But I don't care. I mean, eventually it'd be nice if we had to the point where I could like get some kind of payment back to what I'm doing. Because I am putting a lot of time and work into this with nothing to come back for me. But what I do get out of it is the fact that I have a regular group of people that I get to perform with, and we all know how to work with each other. And that means so much more to me than being in any other production group, because this is a consistent group of people that I can always rely on.
Well, I was so excited when I think Tim shared with me that, there's an improv group in Grand Rapids.
Yes. Yeah. Especially because, you're from here too. And it's like, we're both from the town where it's like, they barely have a community theater. What are you talking about? And it's like, we do. I kind of just started getting a group of us. You came in probably not too long after we actually got going. Like Tim was pretty new to it too. Right. I think we got him about a month before we started performing, but we actually started working together about 3 months before we got on the Clockout stage. Mm-hmm. We were meeting pretty regularly, like if not every 2 weeks, it was every Sunday for a while, where we would get together and we would just mess around. And then finally we're like, well, let's just get on the stage and let's see what we can do. And it was really well. We did great. And
I love that Clockout environment too.
It's a great environment for us to be able to grow in, and they've been such a great group of people to help us. Like I've just been very happy. And so the opportunities that have come our way they just keep coming. Still not making us any money, but at least we're performing.
It's performing, and it can come down the road. And Clockout also has good beer.
Oh my God, does it ever? I'm not a beer person, and I like some of their beers.
I'm not a big beer person, but I like certain beers, and I've been to some of these brewers, and I couldn't find one good beer that I like. There's multiple good beers.
Mm-hmm. When living in Duluth, I kind of got used to craft beer. You just get, like with Fitgers, and there's different breweries in the area. I was just used to that for years, but now it's such an expanded thing. And it's an art form for craft brewers. And that's what I think I like to respect the most, even though I don't necessarily appreciate the contents of beer the same as another beer connoisseur would.
Mm-hmm.
I still appreciate the form, the art, and the creativity that goes into making it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems incredible what they do. And if they're living their passion for it and making great beer, I think that would be a cool thing to do.
Yeah. And that's really all it is I'm a big supporter of all types of creative expression and art forms. So
I am more now and that's because of improv too, because I felt in me, if you go without being creative at all, now, if I go a day or without being creative, it doesn't feel as good.
Right.
When I feel like my hands like this expansiveness in your body happens when you create something. And I share it with this way too, with groups. I do some exercises where I make the audience my partner in the improv game. And so we're creating something together. And if someone would watch it on video afterwards, they go, well, the story kind of went off the rails a little bit there and there. But the people in the room that created with me, they're going, oh my gosh, that was so awesome. I loved it. They're having an experience of being a creator. They're creating in the moment. We're co-creators and bringing this to life, and it feels awesome.
Right. Yeah. Well, it looks like we're getting close to the end here, but usually what I like to do with my guests, we didn't generally do like a recommendation, like what are you binge watching? What movie are you? What book are you reading? What music are you listening? What podcast are you listening to? So you got anything that you can recommend for the listeners?
Well, a number of things actually. So things that I got hooked on was, if you haven't seen it, The Last Kingdom.
Oh, I haven't yet, but
I got sucked in. It's 4 seasons now. Also an Outlander fan, though I have not invested to Stars or whatever it is to see the latest ones, but I love that one too. What is the other one that got me hooked? At first, I did watch WandaVision, and I was slow in the first 2 episodes for me. And then it really kicked in, and I loved it at the end.
That was for everybody, but unless you're like a true Marvel fan, you weren't going to understand that from the get-go, that you're going to have to get through a couple Dick Van Dyke type of episodes.
But even those were pretty good. They just didn't hook me in. You know, one of the things I teach in my Speaker Skills Plus group is I can get really hooked in a series. My girlfriend got me in Discovery of Witches.
Oh, that looks good.
It is. It's the book was great on audio, and then I enjoyed it as well. I go old school. One of my favorites is Firefly.
Joss Whedon.
Yeah, and then
which we don't like Joss Whedon as a person anymore, but we still like his work.
Why don't we? What happened to Joss Whedon? I don't even know.
Oh, you haven't heard in the pop culture?
No.
Oh, he was very abusive to a lot of his cast members in Buffy the Vampire Slayer for sure. And one specific one was during the filming of Justice League, when he was working on that. The actor that played Cyborg in that came forward with a lot of. So unfortunately, with all these accusations coming at him, it's not looking good for him. And so I tend to side with the victims of this type of thing. And so it sucks, because he used to be one of my creative inspirations.
So talented. Yeah. The other one that was that I really got addicted to long ago was Farscape. Have you watched that one?
I have not watched the whole thing, but you clearly like a lot of the sci-fi.
Good sci-fi with a little romance in it. Those are the ones that
have you seen Star Trek Discovery, the new Star Trek series?
I watched, I think, the first 2 seasons, and I loved them. I haven't watched any since, because I haven't played for CBS All Access or whatever the heck it's on.
Paramount Plus now, but yeah. I actually this weekend, I have been getting into season 2. I watched season 1 a long time ago, but it took me, I'm like, okay, I'll get back to Star Trek eventually. Well, I've been talking to somebody who enjoys Star Trek, and we talked about Discovery. I'm like, okay, well, let me catch up with the show so we can talk about it.
I would watch that one if I had. See, that's one I could see myself, because they did the first 2 seasons so well. I would I probably could watch
Every
15
episode seems like a movie. Like it's like a
Yeah.
mini movie.
I could watch 15 episodes in a row. That's how dangerous they are. I tend to not start a new series that has more than one season unless I have a ton of time off in the next little bit.
That's usually what I do in the winter when I know I'm gonna be a lot more downtime is I will get into a series because like that might have a lot of binging. But yeah, Star Trek Discovery is my thing that I'm on lately.
Did you see? Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, and Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Oh yeah. So there's only 2 out of
There's
that,
2
right?
episodes, but the first episode was a little. I mean, it was good, but the second episode really is like, all right, I'm in.
Yeah, I'm a Marvel fan, and that. So I love that. And then what was the other one? Oh, I'm sure you saw it, Queen's Gambit. Did you see that?
I did not watch that. No.
Oh, I thought it was great.
I it's on my list.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so anyway, thank you so much for joining us and talking about improv. Of course, I could talk about improv forever. So
yeah, me too. So what's I didn't even check. What is it's fair? Is that correct? The name of the podcast?
To be fair.
To be fair. So
Yes,
what do you mean by to be fair? What does that mean to you?
So what the way the name? Okay, some people would think it comes from a Letterkenny line from the TV show Letterkenny because there's this whole sketch in it where they're like, "To be fair, to be fair."
To be fair.
Yeah, and it has nothing to do with the Letterkenny, although it's kind of fun that that's such a big deal. What I like about it is a lot of times I have discussions with people and I tend to look from not just my own perception of things, but I also kind of put myself in another person's shoes. And like when it comes to a political discussion, I tend to try to want to see it from all angles before I have a discussion with somebody so that I understand when I'm listening to somebody else, I can actually empathize with why they might disagree with me on something. It makes me feel better as a person when I know that if I am going to stand firm on what I disagree with, that at least I understand what I'm disagreeing with.
So it sounds like you want to be fair.
I do. I don't, even though sometimes my social media could contradict that, I tend to want to be a little bit more of those open-minded to a lot of discussions. And I'm not perfect. I tend to still get a little bit on social media with people, but for the most part, I try to stay with the open mind idea to have conversations about everything. I've had discussions with people who share different political views than I did on this page, especially during a presidential campaign. You know,
yeah, I bet you that was pretty cool. I want to be fair. I do my best to be fair. And one of my favorite, I think it might be from Alan Alda, and this is about listening too. He said, "Are you listening with the willingness to be changed?"
Yes. Yes.
And I attempt to, if I start prejudging, I go, "Hey, Chris, start listening with the willingness to be changed. Be open to whatever ideas. You're not attached to being," because I say this, I like to be wrong now. And that was not true before. I hated to be wrong because if I was wrong about this, I was wrong.
I don't necessarily like to be wrong, but I don't think I take it as a personal attack as much as I used to. And as much as some other people can.
I've reprogrammed it. And so when I'm wrong, I'm learning something new and I love it and I'm curious.
Yes.
So it took a matter of time. I hated to be wrong because if I was wrong as a person, as a being. But now I'm just wrong about this thing, out here. I can be wrong about that.
Yeah. Right. Like, oh, dang it. I thought I knew that better. That's not like, I'm not ashamed to admit when I'm wrong. I don't like to admit when I'm wrong, but I'm not ashamed to do it.
I'm not ashamed, and now I like it. And that felt like for me taking 200-pound backpack off my back, and I get to live life so much lighter because, like I said earlier, everything I said or did was a test of me. Yeah. So if I said something wrong, that was a test that I failed, and now it's I get to learn from this. And great, thanks. You know the answer, and I constantly go to audiences now. Well, what's the answer? I don't know. Do you know the answer?
I guess we'll never know.
We'll never know.
Well, thank you again, Chris, for joining this episode of To Be Fair. And it has been a blast sharing this conversation with you.
Fun hanging out with you, Aaron.
All right.